Drupal Pupils, the most Drupally place on the planet.
So Drupal Pupils, if you're not yet familiar with it, it's very much a laid-back setting. We usually have maybe as many as 5 to 10 people on a call that might interject and ask questions, or they'll wait till Patrick says any questions. And we're looking to speak with people that are active in Drupal, but are also just ambassadors for cool things. And that includes people like Starrie, and Patrick will share more about her. And excited that we have some people on the call that are familiar with Starrie already. I think that's really neat, and perhaps we could dive into some specific questions later on, just pertaining to each person on the call. And yeah, I won't give too big of an overview. The Drupal Pupils setting right now, like once the recording's out, we've been publishing it, and that's where a lot of the interaction is happening with the community. So we do these on Fridays. Only so many people can actually hop on the actual call, but really excited to hear what the feedback is from the community after this one.
All right, Starrie, are you ready to get started off with a game?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So this game is called Modular or Not. I probably couldn't came up with a better name, but that's what I landed on. All right, so Drupal has some funny names for some modules. I've made a list of true modules with these names, and then fake. So you just have to call it out. Is it a module or is it not a module? All right. First one, coffee.
Not a module.
All right. Incorrect. That is a module. Okay. All right. Bee sting.
Not a module.
That is correct. The actual, so like I based the false ones off of real ones. The actual real module is called honeypot. Really cool. Yes. Beauty tips.
I'm going to say it's a module.
Yes, that is a module. That is a module. Beauty tips is a module. Okay, and molehill.
Anybody else want to guess?
I didn't realize we could guess too. These are great. I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Val and Sarah. Yeah, you guys can guess if you want to. Any guesses on molehill?
Molehill.
I'm going for yes. That's true.
I'm guessing no.
It is false. There is a real module called rabbit hole, though. That is the one it was based on. And last one, Starrie, or if you want to, use a lifeline, as they say. Okay. Cucumber.
Yes.
Yes, cucumber is a real module. You are correct. I don't know if we were counting. Jared, how many did we get right? I think you got
bee sting right. 3 at least.
3. I think you got 3 because you got bee sting, which is false, beauty tips, and then cucumber. So
yeah, I would have guessed on every single one of those. So if you actually knew, I feel like 3 is like pretty impressive.
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. All right, moving on. All right, sorry, we're going to get into yourself. You have a bachelor in fine arts and interactive media design. What university did you get that at?
I actually went to, so I have an associate's degree in multimedia and a bachelor of fine arts in interactive media, and they built on each other. The associate's degree, I started that program in 96 and graduated in 98 with that at the Art Institute of Philadelphia. And then I started working after that in the .com era in the late 90s. And then I went back to get my bachelor's degree in 2005 at the Art Institute of Washington, which was in the same system. Yeah.
Very cool. And then what? Go ahead.
Yeah, it was good because the field was new. Like when in the late 90s, they mostly taught us authoring for CD-ROMs, like interactive software. That's how I got a job at Rosetta Stone, because they used to make their language learning software and deliver it on CD-ROM in the 90s. And while I was there, they were starting to move it to the internet delivery. And then I, at that point, the industry had evolved to the point where when I went back to school to get my bachelor's, I knew I was very focused on what I wanted to learn and do with my degree.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, there was a lot of evolution that happened in the dot-com era. So what are some things maybe from childhood, youth that kind of led you down that path?
Well, I was born in 74, so I kind of saw like the whole, personal computing thing happen when I was a child. We all started getting video game consoles at home, which I loved, of course. And then my uncle bought me for Christmas my own Microsoft PC. It was actually pre-Windows. It had MS-DOS, and he used to bring me like on floppy disks the games that could run on it.
Okay.
So, and some of those games actually were you play them using DOS commands. So it was all like command line. So and I just did it because I just thought it was fun. I was the only child, and it was like a big toy, this computer, So, I think that really led me to the career that I'm in now, because I still use command line. And Drupal, definitely use it, and I'm very comfortable with it. And I think looking back, that definitely helped me to this day.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear that. Like it did. Like a lot of people have a different story on that, and that's usually a question we ask. But it's awesome that like what your uncle provided with you kind of led you to your career, which is cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So one thing, kind of tidbit about yourself, you're married to a semi-famous musician as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys all know him. He's a electronic musician. He was in starting in '89. He grew up in Southern California, but he got a role in a band named Dynamics 2 in Miami, Florida. They were like pioneers of like Miami bass music in the early 90s. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with that. So he actually like invented a technology for like bass cars, like that type of music. And he traveled all over the US and Europe, and he opened up for Kraftwerk. I don't know if you guys know who Kraftwerk is, from Germany. Like he used to do a lot of stuff in the 90s. Now he's not in that band anymore. He went on to form another band named Jekyll and Hyde. He's still not with them anymore. Or he's not with them anymore, and he's gone solo. So he's like making more like indie type, still electronic music, but more indie type stuff that's not as dance music. It's not just solely dance music anymore.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah, that kind of had like its own evolution in the 80s and 90s. Like the 90s more, but super cool. Very cool.
Yeah, there's kind of so the reason like I said, I had the computer when I was a kid. But then I was just kind of like, the internet wasn't really around until, I first got online in '96 when I was in college. But when I was in college in Philadelphia, I also used to go to New York City a lot. I had family there, and I would go to these underground dance parties called raves with electronic music. So I got, I don't know if you have seen them, but they used to have these really cutting edge flyers to, they would get passed out to invite people to the party, and it'd have computer graphics on it, like really cool computer graphics. And I saw that, and I was like, I really want to learn to do that. So that's kind of why I chose that major to begin with, because I wanted to learn Photoshop, like graphic design, to do cool computer graphics. And then that's just led me into doing the web type stuff. And that's also why I have a UX designer elements to the work that I do too.
That makes sense. I'm assuming, did you meet your husband? during
Yeah.
The underground shows? I'm assuming that's where
Yeah,
that's
so
going,
I owned I had a radio show at UVA actually, when I first started working here in 2008. And I used to play electronic music and DJ, and I had his records, and I went to see them play, I think in North Carolina, and that's how I met him.
Oh, cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. Awesome.
We actually have a clip of Starrie dancing at one of those raves.
Oh God, really?
I just had to say that now in case I find one later when I'm editing this, and I'll just pop it in
Yeah.
quick. But
There you
haven't.
go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Funny. That's great. Awesome. Well, that's a good transition into your time at UVA. And we're going to you've had a lot of roles at UVA, but we're going to concentrate more on like the Drupal specific roles.
Okay.
So yeah, so in terms of UVA Library 2014, tell us about, there was projects there that, across the spectrum of open source or WordPress, Drupal. Tell us about those projects and kind of the role you had there.
Right. So I actually started working there in 2011 on their communications team, who managed the library website. And they had some kind of cobbled together system with PHP, HTML, JavaScript. And then there was another developer there that really wanted to rebuild the website in WordPress. And it's so funny, like there's been so much drama through the years with all these CMSs because different developers like different things. The WordPress website we had was very difficult to deal with because this other developer built it in a way that was not like in the WordPress codex. Like there wasn't even documentation of like what he did. I don't know why he did what he did, but I got the opportunity to rebuild it again. So I wanted to do Drupal because it was building in popularity at the university, I knew. And so that's how I got started with it.
Cool.
Was
awesome.
that just the library? Was that just the library website, or was that UVA's virginia.edu?
It was the library website. But I do know that virginia.edu was built in Drupal before the library website was, because I think it was like Janelle was on the team, and Christy Moon was a Drupal developer there at the time, and she rebuilt a bunch of websites, including virginia.edu.
Yeah, that's where I'm trying to remember the timeline. I think we actually met before because I worked at Category 4 during that time. And we built a couple things for the communications team, I think, when you were there. And for the library site, I want to say her name was Melinda or Miranda. No, it was Melinda.
Melinda Bauman.
Yes. Who became on the UX team in the library.
Yeah,
Jill.
I was on that team too.
So
yeah,
because sorry.
Well, I was in communications, and then we had a reorganization, and then I was moved to the UX team. And
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious. I'm just aligning timelines. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
No, you're good there. Totally good.
Yeah, a lot happened, and there was a lot of resistance to moving to Drupal at the library. I definitely was the first person to push it there, and lots of infighting and stuff. It did eventually it's kind of ridiculous too, though, because like most other places were moving to Drupal at the time, so I don't know why people were fighting it. People just don't like change, I think.
Yeah, change is hard. Yeah. So what were some of those initial things that you identified that made Drupal a better fit for the site?
Well, I taught myself WordPress, and I think it was around 2007. Because I was reading some blogs by designers and developers that I looked up to. So I was looking at what they were doing with it. So I was playing around with it. So then it kind of came into like, okay, WordPress versus Drupal, which is better? And it became clear after familiarizing myself with Drupal after coming from WordPress that WordPress is better suited for a smaller website and blog, like a blog type of system, whereas Drupal's more for like larger, more complex websites.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I can't really explain it. And I felt like personally I've been able to do way more with Drupal like than I would have ever been able to do with WordPress.
Cool.
And there has been a much steeper learning curve with Drupal, but I feel like it's really paid off to put that energy into learning it.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a lot more out of it.
A lot more out of it, yeah. Yeah, and as we go along with this in terms of your history, I'm sure it helped you out a lot. So, kind of I think your next stop is at Advancement Communications. Was this now going back to 2011? Was this the same team again that you were on, or explain kind of your role there?
The lady who hired me at the library, Charlotte Morford, moved to Advancement Communications, and I applied for a job that opened up there. They were also using WordPress. So I was hired there by Charlotte again. And it was another fight. Like she wanted me to get them to switch to Drupal. So I came in, kind of played the bad cop. Like, we're switching to Drupal. No, like everyone resisted and didn't want to leave WordPress, and they ended up moving to Drupal.
Yeah, they're moving to Drupal, so you won out.
And they're happy. I mean, it's just people don't like to learn new. Like, some people, if they're forced to learn something new, they don't want to do it, you know. I didn't force them, but you know, our boss wanted us to move to Drupal, so
yeah,
we have to do it.
Nice. And then you moved on to the Frank Batten School of Leadership and Public Policy, which is a fairly well-known school at UVA. Tell us about maybe some projects you did there.
Well, when I first started there, I left Advancement Communications. The Frank Batten School job was actually not a web developer job. I was an assistant director. It ended up really being a web developer job, though. I mean, I was managing the website and building it, but I didn't build. So when I first went there, they were still on Drupal 7. So Drupal 7, as you all may know, Drupal 8 was pretty much a rewrite, and you couldn't really upgrade from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. So the director of IT at Frank Batten School had hired a firm called Engine Room. I think they were in Philadelphia, to rebuild their Drupal 7 site in Drupal 8. So he brought me in because I had experience with Drupal to like help make decisions, and I was gonna, like, they were to build it, and then I was gonna work with them, and then I was gonna take it over after they were finished with the project. So that's what happened. And then the COVID pandemic hit. Phone ring. The COVID pandemic hit in early 2020, right after we launched the website. The IT director left, so I was like on my own there. And we didn't even have an IT director for like a year. And I really, I was working like 80 hours a week, like learning the back end, because it was in Acquia, which I had never used before. And I just had to like really put my bootstraps on and make sure that website kept running, you know. Kept the modules up to date. Anything that got broken, I had to fix it, you know. And there was a lot of requests for new types of pages because classes were all online now, and it was pretty hardcore. But yeah, I learned a lot in that role about Drupal. And
I imagine that was largely due to the pandemic. Like you said, a lot of classes were going online. You had to build a lot of different sites.
Yeah, the website became way more important than normal.
Yeah, very cool. So now you move into your current role, which is now with the IT services team, which you guys are kind of like, you kind of touched on it. You guys are kind of like an internal agency. What are you doing in this role currently? Tell us about that.
So I actually, the position that I was at Frank Batten School was eliminated late last year, and but there was an internal posting for a web developer at, it's called Custom Applications and Consulting Services in the IT department at UVA. So I applied for that and got it, thankfully. And I really love it. And they use Acquia. I was kind of worked loosely with them because we had our Acquia license through them at Batten School. And they ended up taking on like the back end maintenance of the Batten website. So I came to this department and so now anything that comes up for Batten, so I'm still working on the Batten website.
Yeah.
But I'm also working on all the other websites that they maintain and build. So I do everything like updating modules, design, UX design, just like fixing things. And I'm enjoying it a lot. It's really fun.
That's awesome. You kind of touch on that, and that's kind of like the main kind of theme. Your kind of story is like, melding those two, like UI, UX, and coding. How have you done that in this role currently?
Actually, there's another developer there named Chris Celeste who basically has the same skill set as I do. He does design, UX design, and backend Drupal stuff. So I've just been able to fit right in really easily because they have so much work. Like they have a huge backlog of work. It's a internal agency, and they charge less than I guess external vendors. So everybody at EV wants to come to us because they get a better rate.
You're able to work on every part of the site, which is super cool. So
yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
awesome. So we'll stop here for a quick Q&A. Sarah or Val, Blint, my coworkers on. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and feel free to ask.
How big is the CAC's catalog now? Do you know? I mean, your legacy stuff that you have to maintain.
Yeah, we have 400 websites.
Yeah, you guys have been around. I mean, I've known of CACs for quite some time. That's cool. Do you ever work with Mary Cook? She's a UX. She's like one of the few people who have UX in her title in ITS.
What? There's a lot of different departments. And I think one or two other departments in CACs. But there's a lot of departments. I think there's a whole UX department in ITS. And I believe she works for them. But I haven't worked with her yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to CMS Evolution. Started again, as we established, you've been doing this a while. So I want to get your thoughts on kind of where you've started with kind of working with CMSs and kind of what you've seen kind of happen up until now. So your first experience with a content management system was Adobe Contribute. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, my first job at UVA was for the College and Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. I was hired there in 2008 for their communications team, which is actually a really large team. And they had about 25 websites, which included the main Arts and Sciences website. And they also had a website for each department. And they still exist to this day. And they're also using Drupal now. But back then, it was kind of like a homegrown CMS that was built by a developer named Fred Telegdi. I don't know if you guys are in Charlottesville, if anybody's heard his name before. But
he's still at Darden. He's still at Darden.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, so he built that system, which was very cutting edge at the time. And it was using Adobe Dreamweaver to write the PHP and HTML and CSS. And Adobe had this other product called Adobe Contribute so basically in the code of the websites, you would put like this templating code. And that meant that and it was like a way to have, you could add users that were content editors. So they could open those pages up in Adobe Contribute, and it would have like a field that where that templating code was placed would open up for them, and then they could edit and save just the words on the page. So it was a very proto type of Drupal type CMS system. And it worked okay. It was pretty buggy, but it worked pretty well. And then of course WordPress was gaining in steam, and then and Drupal as well. So that was abandoned, and the old system was abandoned.
What would you say like some of the main differences were? Like you said, it was homegrown. Like, was there just, I mean, a lot of different capabilities? Like, what were some of the main differences between Drupal to that?
Well, it's interesting because we're talking about, I guess we're gonna talk about Headless a little bit, but I mean, I guess it was kind of like a headless type of system because you could write any kind of code you wanted, you know, and add these Adobe Contribute tags in it. You just needed to have Adobe Contribute license, and then you could edit the pages like a CMS back then.
Oh, so yeah, it was a headless solution,
Right.
Which is really cool. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you didn't have to have like the Drupal engine architecture or anything. It could be whatever you want.
Gotcha. Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to what you are exploring next, what you just mentioned, Headless. So tell us about right now in your roles. It's becoming more popular at UVA. Tell us about that and kind of why UVA is looking to go more headless.
Well, the whole idea of headless has been around for a while. Even back with the library when I was there. Doug Chestnut, who's still an engineer there, the library website is Headless Drupal, the UVA library website. And I know the reason he chose that at the time, he was like the lead developer engineer on our team, is because you're keeping the database separate from how it's presenting on the front end. And if you have multiple ways you want to deliver that data, it's a good idea to make it headless because you don't need to, like, if you have multiple websites at multiple URLs, the content editors might need to update the data multiple times in separate Drupal installations. But when you have headless, they could just log into one Drupal installation, update the data there, and then it gets pulled out via, I guess it's like JSON. I know there's like different types of server-side JavaScript now that can help pull that data out of there now, if that makes any sense. I worked on that team, and I wasn't involved in how it was delivered in the headless part of it, but I was involved in the Drupal part of it. But we're going to be at CACS, we're going to be building some headless stuff in the future because we've had some requests to do so because of that, because people don't want to update information on multiple websites at the same time. Like, it annoys them that they have to go, like the provost, they have to update data on different websites.
Gotcha.
For example.
Okay. Cool. Nice. I guess what are some things you're looking forward to, like with those challenges, in being able to do more headless sites?
Well, I know everyone that has built headless sites raves about it, so I assume there's a good reason for that. Maybe, I'm so deep into the whole Drupal Acquia architecture and everything right now. Like, I've got it mentally, like I know how everything works, and I guess I'm just, after you do things for a while, you want to learn something new. And it's definitely going to be something good to add to my resume, and it'll be something new to learn. So, and I enjoy working in, I think I'd be using more JavaScript, which I've used in the past, but I don't really use it very often in my current projects that I've been doing. So an opportunity to get more into JavaScript, I think would be a good thing to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're going to move on to a group that you're a part of, which we'll talk about here. It's Women Tech Makers, and there's, as I understand it, there's groups in a lot of different cities around the country. So tell us about the group, kind of how people can get involved, and what you do for the group currently.
Right. So the two ladies here, if you're interested, check out Google developers program called Women Tech Makers. I've been involved in them now for 10 years just because I went to some Google conferences when I was at the library. Doug Chestnut again would go every year, and he encouraged me to come. So I went, and they asked me to be a part of it. And it's now grown to be gigantic. It's not just the country, it's the whole world. So it's just like a community of women in technology can join it, and kind of Google like helps give us visibility because, traditionally over in the past, women weren't really that much involved in technology, like statistically speaking. So it's just a way, I guess, like younger women may not be as apt to choose that as a major or a career if they don't see a lot of other women in technology. So they wanted to promote women in technology to like inspire younger women to go for it, and that it's like to normalize it. And there's a lot of really great things, resources. Like if you want to learn technology, they have all kinds of resources, like free courseware, free like conferences. They'll pay for you to go to conferences, meet and network with other women in technology. I don't know. It's just a cool program that they have that I got involved in.
As part of it, I think you were able to go to the Google headquarters.
Yeah. I've been probably like 5 or 6 times to the Google campus in Mountain View, California. They also do they'll have big regional meetings. The last one I went to was in Miami, and I've been to New York, and they'll pay for it, which is, I was like, oh, cool, like a cool work trip. And it's just like, it's Google, so they have a lot of resources. It's really nice conferences, and it's very cutting edge too. Like they will share things they've been working on behind the scenes, like the AI stuff. I saw them working on that probably in like 2015. So I got like the inside scoop on what was coming ahead. OpenAI kind of like sideswiped or pushed everything out before Google did. But Google's been working on AI like for a really long time. They just weren't open about it or publicized it very much. But you're probably seeing now that Google's getting caught up, and I predict they'll surpass OpenAI, just because I don't really know why they were keeping it. They weren't commercializing it before. I think that there was some controversy about it. Like I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the controversy behind AI.
Yes. Yeah. I think I remember like reading articles like maybe around that time, like people had put out articles saying, "Oh, this is coming." But I feel like there was so much, at least kind of the way I think about it, there's probably a lot of things they had to work through, like regulation wise. Like they had to make sure essentially these models and these systems were perfect before they put them out, before they, made sure they did no harm.
Well, I think the head of the AI department there quit because of ethics. I don't know if you've been following that, but yeah, there's like a lot of people are afraid it's going to eliminate a lot of jobs. What are we going to do with all this, and how dangerous is it? So yeah, I think there was probably a lot of internal stuff. There's also like, I know when they first were talking about it, well, the first thing that they unveiled, I was there at the conference in 2014. It was actually the conference where actually, you know what? I don't think it was 2014. It was 2012. So the very first AI technology that they unveiled was image recognition. They were able to scan the entire internet, every image, and like recognize. They had this technology that would recognize images. So you could search, and it was integrated into Google Photos. I think they were like developing this technology behind the scenes, but weren't really putting out press releases about it. It was kind of just starting to get integrated into their products. So yeah, they've been doing AI for a long time. It just hasn't been like, oh, this new chatbot AI fancy thing that got a lot of publicity. Yeah.
It's crazy that that was like 12 years ago with the Google images, because just last week my dad was like, is there any way that I can like take an image and like search for that on the internet? I'm like, yeah, just go to Google Images. And he was like, his mind was blown. He's like, I can do this? It's like,
Yeah.
you can do a lot more than that now too.
Yeah. I actually just learned about it. I don't know, maybe I want to say a year ago. I don't know, 6 months. I'm like, oh wow, you can do that. Like I've always wanted to do that. Like, what tree is that? I wanted to know what tree that was.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so that's a good reason right there to get involved in women tech makers and Google developers. You don't have to be a woman. Google developers, like you'll start to see what it's like a way to stay ahead of everything. Like you see what's coming 5 years from now. So I don't know. It's good.
That's very cool. No, that's a good point to get involved in doing good and making, promoting women in technology. And then on the other side of that, just like knowing what is coming with Google. I mean, the monster that Google is. So cool. Sarah, were you going to say something?
Oh no, I was just going to say, you guys, TinEye was the way to go for image searching.
That's
way
right.
back when, before Google snuck that one in there.
I haven't heard of that before. TinEye?
Yeah, TINEYE.
Oh, okay.
And it's a reverse image search. Still pretty robust.
Was it made by a university somewhere, or do you know?
I don't remember. It's just been. It seems like it's been around forever.
Very cool.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of that either. We'll have to. Sarah, maybe I'll reach out and we can throw a link in an email. Put out there. Yeah, that is very cool. I did not know that was around before Google Images. So very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Well, that is all we have, guys. Is there any other questions from the crew? Yeah.
I am interested to chat a bit more about Headless, because like starting with WordPress, and like for a lot of WordPress developers, just that's how they operate, like templated sites and trying to keep things streamlined. Now going to Drupal, already more complicated, and then now going to Headless Drupal, I'd say is quite a bit more complicated, just the complexities. And so yeah, curious to hear, like, has that had its own learning curve with Headless sites? And also like what are you using for a front end, or like what other technologies are you looking to possibly integrate, if you have any examples? I'd be curious.
Yeah, so the from what I've read about it and what I've seen other developers using, which is probably where I'll start, is looking at React.js, and there's another one called Vue.js, and then Next.js. I assume that's server-side JavaScript, but those are the technologies that I believe I'll be looking into to learn to move forward with Headless Drupal applications. So it's like, you want to install a Drupal module that exports all the data from your site to, I guess, like a JSON feed. I assume that's what it will be, and then you'll use whoever the developer will use something like React or Vue JavaScript library to parse that JSON feed and grab the data and then display it.
Awesome. And you were mentioning working with Acquia with Headless. Does that now that would allow you to not only just spin up content for different sites, but with their whole system, like you can spin up content specific to a visitor that's maybe interacted with the site numerous times compared to someone who's just joined the site for the first time. Curious if you've been using it in that way as well.
Not yet, no.
Yeah.
But I know Acquia's got some literature out there about building headless using their system. So I definitely will be checking that out because we're licensed with them. So
yeah,
it makes sense.
I think similar to personalizing a site, like a lot of people haven't known, like, okay, we can do this now. Like, how do we do it in a non-creepy way? And it's like, you don't want to be like, hi, Jennifer, thanks for coming back for the 6th time this week. So it's like,
right.
it's like getting smarter with this technology. Like, we can like have these insights. Like, how do we actually use it to assist the user's experience? And especially with Acro, we work in e-commerce, and it's you don't want to creep out the customer, but you want to maybe show them products that they might be interested in more because you know they've been coming back and that sort of thing. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
I would love to connect with you for sure. And so something we have, it's called Gesso, and we kind of call ourselves the head to headless. But yeah, I would love to see about connecting with you on some of that, and would be very nice.
For sure. Yeah, and if you have other speakers in the future talking about headless, I definitely will be there to come join and see what other people are doing.
Yeah, we have had a couple people reach out talking about decoupled Drupal, headless Drupal, and I know that it's even been on the agenda at DrupalCon, like something that that Dries shared in his last Dries note is like predicting what's the next big move. And so similar to these big Google meetings, like that's what I love about DrupalCon is we're all coming together and like, okay, AI is big right now and this is big. Like, how can we like predict the wave so that we can be on the front of it?
Right. Yeah. I haven't been to DrupalCon in a long time. I need to definitely go to the next one.
Yeah.
In May, early May, Portland. Yep.
Is that okay? Yeah, I gotta make sure I go to that.
I do have a question. I'd love to hear more about your experience with Acquia, because we decided not to use Acquia because they were a little limited in what they offered.
I talk about people resisting things like in the past on projects. I also have resisted things, and I resisted Acquia for a long time because I was using this Pantheon. I don't know if you guys have heard of Pantheon.
Yeah, they're a direct competitor.
Right. So I used them first, but then I got hired for jobs and they were using Acquia. It wasn't my decision, so I just adapted and learned, like, used it. And I would say that for my Batten School role when I was there, I wouldn't have been able to survive without them because their support team was super helpful. Like I'd write in the middle of the night, oh my God, how do I do this? Or this is broken, or help me. And they would write back and help me. Sometimes would call me like immediately. And there was a lot of really great people that worked on their team. So as a lone person who was responsible for this website, I was so happy that we had a license with them and that we had their support.
Was that supporting the actual base code of modules and Drupal core?
Yeah, everything that was, the only thing they would not support was third-party modules. Like if it, but anything that had to do with the Drupal application itself or any modules that were like, I don't know how to explain. I guess
I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I get what you mean. With Pantheon the same way in their support system?
I honestly never had, I just like built a few websites in Pantheon, and it was never like as serious as that. Like I was the only person for a whole school at UVA during the pandemic. Like I had a lot of responsibility on me to make sure everything is going. Like the other sites I built, there wasn't really. It was just like a site, and I never really had many problems with it because it wasn't getting used that much, you know.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I mean, who knows? If I had been on Pantheon during that time, it might have been they might have just been just as helpful. I'm not sure, but I do know that Acquia did. I was happy with them. So
That's good to hear.
Is this part of like kind of taking over? You're kind of deciding which way to go on the hosting side? Is that? I'm just curious.
We have 7 different applications that make up our whole web presence. Drupal's only one.
So you're looking for a hosting platform that can kind of support all of those.
Correct. And so Acquia, I talked to them in Deathly, and they just said they only support Drupal. I just want hosting of, I mean, everything else is open source or homegrown. But I have heard, heard good and bad things about Acquia. The Drupal support is kind of what I'm interested in terms of core and all that kind of stuff.
Acquia is very expensive.
Yes.
That's the major drawback, and that I think colors everyone's opinion of them, because it's like, and I think, to be honest, I think eventually my role, like the price of Acquia and just my position at Batten School, because the economy started performing worse, was why my role ended up getting cut, is because it was just so expensive. But if that's a factor, yeah, that's the main negative thing about Acquia. But as far as like their services are great.
Well, how expensive do you by chance know what kind of pay structure you're on, or what? Not you, and like some of your projects as an example.
You mean for Acquia, like what type of pricing? You know, I'm not really involved in that. I know that at the Batten School, we had 2 applications, and we had our license through ITS, the department I'm in now, and we were paying, I think it was like $20,000 a year just for hosting those 2 applications. So
yeah,
that's a lot.
That's what we pay for our host vendor that we've ended up on, and that's where we host all 7 different applications that we use. It's just over 20,000. But I know UVA HR also uses Acquia and is in Drupal.
Right. So yeah, it's like crowdfunding at ITS, because we've got a big license, and everybody that signs on with it ends up reducing the price for everyone else on the same contract. So that's the way it works. But the way I ended up looking at it, so it's like, okay, we were paying $20,000 a year for these 2 applications, but it was like having a full-time systems administrator on my team, right? Like a full-time systems administrator, you would pay $100,000 a year to maintain your servers and provide support. So
that's how I sold it here.
It's $20,000 a year, but you're getting like a full-time systems administrator. So it really isn't. If you're using their support, then it's worth the money, I think. That's that became my conclusion after my experience.
Yeah, I wish they would. They were more open to hosting non-Drupal stuff, but yeah, that's exactly why I had to seek out a host vendor, because I am not a system administrator.
I'm not either.
And I know enough to know that it would be bad for me to do all that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to do it now. I mean, I still have to update modules, and if you're in Acquia, you still have to do that, and that can be pretty complicated. But they'll help. Like sure. I had to learn Composer and Drush, and keep the modules up to date. And if I came upon errors or needed help, like I just wrote the support people, and they would say, "Oh, try this command," and they would look at the logs for me, and I had to do the work, but they would guide me through it. So
Gotcha.
Cool.
yeah,
Do you
if you
do
want to learn Drupal, it's definitely part of what you're paying them. They really help you learn how to do things.
that development in a Windows or Apple environment or Linux?
Actually, so that's another thing that Acquia provides is they have this. They used to have Dev Desktop software, and you would use Terminal on your Mac to like log into their servers and do stuff. But now they have a product called Cloud IDE, which is
Yes.
a cloud-based, basically terminal where you can run all your command lines scripts.
Interesting.
And which is nice because then you can use, if you have a contract with them and you have a problem, you can ask for their support because you're paying for it.
Yeah, I can see how they get you in under their umbrella.
Yeah, they've got me under their umbrella. Thankfully, I don't have to pay out of my pocket.
Yeah.
But yeah,
There you go.
I have
Cool,
I have
guys.
no desire to move away from them, but I'm not paying for it, so.
Sarah, thank you for sharing as well. Very cool.
I don't want to derail, but just Patrick and Jared, since I'm new, what companies are you guys with?
I'm with Cheppers. We're a Drupal technical shop. We have a lot of other technical expertises in the open source community, and then Jared's with Acro, and he kind of explained their e-commerce. Yeah. Oh, you're muted, Jared.
Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, specifically B2B e-commerce is where we specialize. And so I was sharing a story, like we call ourselves the head-to-head list. So we'll integrate with, say, a manufacturer's ERP system, and they might have a native integration with something like Shopify or BigCommerce, and they want to show their product configurator during checkout and tie into specific components that are only in the ERP, or they might want to show account information. And so we get around limitations that you might find using Drupal and our experience in open source. Yes. So yeah, would love to connect with you more and hear what you're doing, Sarah. And we, our team, just like Cheppers, work alongside teams to help them out. So especially if you're coming in to the picture and like taking over everything, like sometimes it can be nice to have someone there holding your hand and helping along the way.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well,
So,
thank you for inviting me to come
Thank you,
speak.
Starrie.
And I'm thrilled that some local people showed up. Feel free to connect with me or send me messages if you have any more questions about anything. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you, Starrie. Yeah, no, this was great.
Sure.
This was great.
right on. Yeah, and we'll have some links in the YouTube video, and for sure, definitely want everyone feel free to share it on LinkedIn when it's out, likely next week sometime.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Have a great
Bye.
weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have
Val,
a nice
Sarah,
weekend.
thank you.
I've heard some other people inherit a site in progress, and it's basically like becoming like the mom of a site who doesn't know anything about her kids, and it's like so much going on that you have to like wrap your mind around.
Well, I mean,
how's your experience been?
Well, I actually was not familiar with Drupal in the first place. I'm very familiar with WordPress. And so I've been doing a learning curve of both. And I kind of understand what decisions my predecessor made. But so yes, it is learning where, what, how, and all that good stuff. And further fleshing it out. There are a lot of things that were not quite done. So it's been fine. It's Drupal. I mean, that's a caveat, right?
Yeah.
Drupal Pupils, the most Drupal pupil place on the planet.